President Trump bashing American media while speaking to the International Press Corps in Poland today. Here to discuss, CNN senior media correspondent Brian Stelter and political commentators Charles Blow, op-ed columnist for the New York Times, Matt Lewis, senior columnist for the Daily Beast, and Mike Shields, former chief of staff to Reince Priebus at the Republican National Committee. Good evening to all of you. The first question, Brian, at this president's news conference today was focused on his attacks on CNN. Take a listen.
Since you started the whole wrestling video thing, what are your thoughts about what has happened since then? I mean, CNN went after you and has threatened to expose the identity of a person they said was responsible for it. I'd like your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think what CNN did was unfortunate for them. As you know now, they have some pretty serious problems. They have been fake news for a long time. They've been covering me in a very dishonest way. Do you have that also, by the way, Mr. President? But CNN and others, I mean, not others, NBC is equally as bad, despite the fact that I made them a fortune with The Apprentice, but they forgot that. But I will say that CNN has really taken it too seriously, and I think they've hurt themselves very badly. Very, very badly. And what we want to see in the United States is honest, beautiful, free, but honest press. We want to see fair press. I think it's a very important thing. We don't want fake news. And by the way, not everybody is fake news. But we don't want fake news. Bad thing. Very bad for our country.
A lot to discuss there because the biggest purveyor of fake news is the president in this country because he does it a lot. Number two, CNN is just fine. And number three, he would not have turned to the Polish president and asked that question had he known what just happened with the press in Poland.
There have been restrictions on the press in Poland. There were even protests. We saw Polish citizens coming into the streets trying to support a free press there amid attempts to crack down and curtail press access. It is notable that President Trump only ended his comments normally where most American presidents will begin, with an expression of support for a free, as he said, beautiful press. He started out by attacking CNN and NBC. And I thought it was revealing the way he was doing that, saying, NBC, I made them a lot of money with The Apprentice. They should take care of me, but they're so mean to me. It shows the transactional way he thinks about the media, the way he thinks about business and maybe about politics and governing. But let's make no mistake, we're continuing to see this kind of coordinated campaign by Trump and his allies to tear down news outlets they don't like, news outlets that are trying to hold them accountable. Happens to be CNN today, happens to be NBC on Trump's mind today, but it'll be others as well. It's been others in the past, it'll be others in the future. Yeah. What I think Polish citizens and American citizens have in common is a desire for a truly free press.
But what people don't, there's a lot there. One, CNN is worldwide, the biggest news organization, and he probably feels CNN can hurt him the most. That's why he goes after CNN and we're carrying the ball. The other thing is that what people don't realize at home, that reporter was a setup. Is that a setup?
I don't know if we can call it a setup, but here's the context. David Martosco is a reporter for the Daily Mail who's interviewed for a job in the Trump administration. He's been named in the past as a possibility as press secretary or some other press job. Now, whether that was real or not, it's unclear, but he confirmed he did have a meeting about it. He met with the president about it. He's viewed as he's a friendly guy, but he's viewed as a friendly reporter to the Trump administration. So you'll wonder when someone gets the first question and they've interviewed for a job in the Trump White House, how fair that really is. The second questioner, NBC's Hallie Jackson, asked, I thought, tougher questions, sharper questions of the president.
What's your reaction, Charles?
Well, I mean, in addition to what you're saying, it just underlines the incredible narcissism of the president. I mean, everything that he says is about how the press has treated me, how NBC has treated me, what I did for them, and they didn't repay me. It is never about even the investigation, the Russia investigation, it's never about the health of the country. It's never about protecting the institutions that make the country great. It's never about like something that is bigger than me. It is always about everything that is as small as me with this man. Mm-hmm. And when you view it through that lens, then it starts to make a little bit more sense. Not that it makes it right. It just makes it make sense that he cannot see anything greater than himself. And that kind of drags the presidency down. That drags the country down. That makes us all sit around and talk about his feelings and whether or not his fragility is in play and whether or not he is personally hurt and injured by something that someone said that he didn't agree with, and that he now tosses around the idea of fake news as if it is interchangeable with whether or not it is laudatory for me or not. And that's crazy.
Wasn't this an opportunity, Mike Shields, for a president to defend freedom of the press and the importance of an independent media, especially with a country that has just dealt with that, whose people went to the street to fight for a more open and more free press?
Well, he did. I mean, he said that, and everyone was watching. He said it to the world. He talked about a free press and having an open and fair and free press. I mean, that's the President of the United States' words, and they matter. We may not like the order that he put them in. I think that's kind of getting nitpicky. He said those words.
Mike,
I think the amazing thing here, is that we're questioning the background of one of the reporters. So the press should be fair, but then if we don't like who the reporter is, we're going to question his background and expose that on television and say, well, actually, that reporter is not a real reporter. That's exactly what conservatives do all the time.
Actually, Brian just took up for the reporter.
I like David a lot. He's a friendly
I said
guy.
that I thought that
right,
it
but you're saying he interviewed with the Trump administration, so it really was kind of a setup of a question. When we get into that, when we start pointing out the fact that...
The Daily Mail is not one of the biggest outlets in the United States. The Trump White House chose to call on the Daily Mail over bigger news outlets.
Okay.
It may be a complete coincidence, Mike, but the president called outlets fake news before at the end, by the way, adding the...
No, but let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. If we start down that path, right, if we start looking at the background of reporters and we say, well, he interviewed with the Trump administration, let's start looking at some of the other reporters and what their backgrounds are. Let's question whether or not they have pure motives in the questions that they're asking. What you're going to find is people that work for Democratic senators, people that work for Democratic presidents, people that have given money to Democrats, people that vote in Democratic primaries when we pull up their voter file information. And this is what conservatives, why we feel like we're in an onslaught. One of the interesting things about this, I thought, was I talked to conservatives in Canada, in Britain, in Australia, and Germany. They all feel like they have a hostile relationship with the press as well. So the president was sort of looking at another leader saying, yeah, when you're a conservative, this is, and obviously the issues in Poland aside, I'm not getting into what they're doing in their country with the press because we do need a free press. But it is something that is a commonality amongst conservatives around the world that they feel beset upon. And I just find it really ironic that we're questioning the motives. We're questioning the motives of a reporter when study after study, my entire career in politics for 20 years has shown that most reporters come at things from the left. A lot of them come into the press.
But Mike, we spent a whole lot of time.
So we can question the motives of a lot of reporters.
Let me jump in here. I asked the question because it has been out there in the news, and people have been discussing whether this was a setup or not, whether the president was intentionally calling upon a reporter who would have a favorable question to him. We spent 3 or 4 minutes before that discussing other issues that were probably that are more important than the last question I asked, and that Brian defended the reporter. Wasn't this, back to my original question, shouldn't the president be there on foreign soil defending the United States, defending a free press, instead of taking something that is local here to the United States and bringing it across the shore to foreign soil and having all of our allies and our enemies being able to see what kind of controversy we're having here? Shouldn't he be defending America and the press?
Well, he did defend the press, but I also don't think anyone in the world doesn't know that the president has an adversarial relationship with the press. And I think one of the things about having a free country is that we don't sort of have propaganda when we go overseas and pretend things aren't going on in our country. We have a free and open dialogue for everybody to see, and everybody knows that the president has an adversarial relationship with the press.
What if the president is standing there,
based on a lie,
giving
Mike?
propaganda?
You work for CNN. It's based on a lie. We're not fake news, Mike.
Well, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, of course, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it's a known fact that the president has an adversarial relationship with the press, and he talks about it all the time. He tweets about it all the time.
Based on a lie. The lie is that we're fake news.
No, but you weren't asking me about that. You're asking whether or not it's okay if the president should talk about this on foreign soil. And my point is, yes, it is. Of course you can talk about anything on foreign soil. We're an open society. We're not going to hide things just because we're overseas.
Even if the president is giving something that's false, even if he is purveying.
Well, now you're getting into the substance of what he said. You asked me about whether or not it's okay to even talk about.
Well, that's the premise behind the question. Why is he talking about something that's false and giving false information to everyone overseas? He's just lying to people overseas, saying, you know, the media's fake, NBC's fake, CNN is fake, and he's telling that to our enemies and our allies. What's the point? That's the question. What is the point to do that? Why?
Well, you know, my opinion on this is that the president feels besieged. I think that he feels attacked by the media on a daily basis. Every day he wakes up, he feels as though he's trying to get an agenda done, and people in the media are coming after him. And his response is to be a pugilist and punch back, and that's why you get
the whole thing again. I got to get to the break because I'm getting in that in my ear. But the whole point of it is that no one's attacking the president; they're just reporting on it, and his feelings are hurt. He's the president; he's the leader of the free world. Everyone who's at that G20, everyone who's over there, they're looking to him for leadership. And so, if he can't take the criticism or being reported on by a free media, maybe he shouldn't be in that position.
Seriously, even if he's being attacked,
right?
Even if he is being attacked, number one, he's attacking as much as he's being attacked. So if he can't take a punch, he shouldn't throw a punch. Number one, and number two, he's the. I'm sorry, I let you talk. And number two, he's the president of the United States. There is a certain sort of kind of protocol in diplomacy that you exercise when you're on foreign soil that is different than when you're domestic. And if this were Obama, and in fact Obama was very much criticized about diminishing the stature of the United States when he was overseas, and we can't let this descend into a partisan argument where all of a sudden it's okay for Trump to be fragile and go take his gripes and grievances overseas and whine about it. And it was different. It was a different set of rules for Obama, and who was not doing any of this, by the way.
Okay, stand by. Matt, you'll get in on the other side of the break. We'll be right back.